WIS-TV 10, Columbia.
Good evening, I'm Ed Carter. Once again, news which affects our pocketbooks was getting a lot of attention today. As you can probably guess, the news was not good. Prices are up. That's no surprise, but the amount of the increase is 15% on an annual basis. The main culprit in all this, the sky-high interest rates. Irving R. Levine has complete details.
Jim and Cindy Fletcher would like to buy this $95,000 house in suburban Atlanta. But high mortgage costs have put it out of reach.
We simply can't handle that.
With a 16% mortgage interest rate, the Fletchers can't afford the $1,000 a month payments. And at this New Jersey dealership, Bob Getting finds it hard to sell cars.
They come in and they compare interest rates more so than buying price.
Until now, President Reagan has supported the high interest rate policies of Paul Volcker at the Federal Reserve. But some economists believe the president will be forced to change.
Well, I think when Mr. Reagan comes back from vacation, he has to sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk with Paul Volcker, head of the Federal Reserve System, and explain to him that while the high interest rates have been very helpful in slowing down inflation up to this point, they've really done about all they can. And from now on, high interest rates can only damage the economy and wreck the Reagan administration recovery plan.
Although rising interest rates were responsible for a quarter of the increase in the July Consumer Price Index, there were other ingredients. Supermarket food prices were up 0.8%. Medical care costs up 1.3%. And across the country, big jumps in mass transit fares. A 15% increase in Miami last month. 20% in Baltimore, 25% in New York, Los Angeles, and San Diego, 30% in Chicago, 40% in Denver. And wages didn't keep up with inflation. The average American, after paying taxes, had 3 cents less left to spend of every dollar earned than a year ago. Irving R. Levine, NBC News, Washington.
Richland County Council today gave tentative approval for funds for water and sewer lines in the I-77 industrial corridor. The council approved $2.3 million in general obligation bonds, but the measure requires 2 more votes before it will be final. Council members say they hope contributions from industries and landowners in the I-77 area will cut down the money required to provide the services. Richland County officials have worked out a compromise with the county's garbage collectors. County Administrator Dick Black presented the plan to council this morning. Here's how it works. The present collection system continues through October of next year. That leaves time for the county and the garbage collectors to pull together a system to ensure garbage pickup at all homes in unincorporated areas of Richland County. Black's plan envisions a countywide system approved by the end of this year. He wanted the extra time to look at an earlier proposal by the Central Midlands Regional Planning Council. All the franchised garbage collectors support the compromise. It does allow them to ask council to raise collection fees in October of this year. It would result in countywide collection no later than 1983. We've been hearing a lot recently about how Richland County is trying to solve its garbage collection problems. Well, Lexington County recently dealt with some solid waste disposal problems of its own. Catherine Lilly reports.
Earlier this summer, Lexington County's green boxes were practically disappearing under mounds of uncollected solid waste. The collection system backed up due to a series of problems, including truck breakdowns and illegal dumping. But the system is running smoothly again because council has been cracking down by issuing tickets to illegal dumpers, and because the fleet of collection trucks is now back on the road. People living in rural areas take their waste to green boxes, while homeowners pay franchise collectors to pick up from more populated areas. Councilman Jerry Howard says Lexington has achieved somewhat of a compromise system that works.
There's some fine-tuning that needs to be done. There's some things that cause problems from time to time. But on the whole, the system is working pretty good, and we don't anticipate going to anything like Richland County is now contemplating. We don't think we need to take that step, but we'll be watching very closely to see what they do.
Some more fine-tuning in Lexington's system may come later this year, when council decides how to deal with franchise collectors' demands for more money. Catherine Lilly, TV 10 News.
In other action tonight, Lexington County Council gave preliminary approval to a zoning amendment which would allow a jewelry warehouse to be built on the corner of Seawright Drive. A spokesman for a group of homeowners who oppose the store say they'll take council to court along with the developer to stop the zoning change from going through. Council also gave second reading to another zoning amendment which would allow more boat docking facilities to be built on Lake Murray. Still to come, we'll tell you about a gas leak out in California which forced thousands of people to be evacuated from downtown San Francisco. Also, some more great pictures of Saturn and its moons. These stories and more, much more, still ahead. The pilot of an Air Force A-10 fighter plane died today when his plane crashed and burned in a wooded area near Somerville. The plane was flying out of England Air Force Base in Louisiana on a training mission near Charleston. The pilot was identified as 24-year-old First Lieutenant Vincent Perdue. He was from Somerville. The plane came down near a subdivision. No other injuries were reported. Authorities still don't know what killed two people whose remains were found near Pelion yesterday, but Lexington County Coroner Harry Harmon says an autopsy leaves him reasonably sure the victims were 26-year-old Wanda Jeffcoat and her 6-year-old daughter. Both have been missing from Swansea since earlier this month. Authorities believe they were murdered, and that is causing concern among Swansea residents. Terry Dorsey reports.
Near Pelion, at the site where remains of the young mother and daughter were found, friends of the family, a minister and his wife, were checking to see if they could tell the Jeffcoats anything more about what happened. In the town nearest the Jeffcoats' house, besides the streets being repaved, the murders have stirred up more excitement than Swansea residents are accustomed to. It sort of frightens ninth grader Robert Sharp.
Well, it's hardly ever a murder in Swansea where a killer is on the loose. So it's hardly ever you find something that's starting to be on the news anymore.
The conversation in Lois Williamson's store has centered around the Jeffcoat case for the last few days. Almost everyone in town is either related to the murder victims or knows someone who is. A customer in the store, Jimmy Bobbitt, dated Wanda Jeffcoat in high school.
Like I say, I knew the family real good, and that's what kind of upset me, because especially when her little daughter's 5 and my son here, he's 5.
Other people are also shocked that anyone would murder a small child.
My daughter-in-law said last night that the little boy had been sleeping in a room by himself, so she brought him in the room with her. You know, she just, on account of this, this tragedy we've had down here.
Most residents here say they'll feel a lot safer when an arrest is made. Terry Dorsey, TV 10 News.
Thousands of people had to be evacuated from 19 buildings in San Francisco's financial district today when a pipeline broke and sent gas fumes into the air like a geyser. One official said nearly 100,000 people had to leave their offices. We have a late report now from Rick Davis.
Several square blocks of San Francisco were empty today. No crush of traffic, no throngs of people. And some of the tallest buildings in this city were empty. Buildings normally filled with tens of thousands of people. And this was the reason. Natural gas coming from a 16-inch pipe, broken by construction workers, highly dangerous. When that happened, the streets were cleared, the buildings were evacuated. 4 people were hospitalized, overcome by gas fumes. Many others complained of dizziness and headaches. But there was no panic when the buildings were cleared.
No, not really. People were relatively calm. I was quite surprised.
All the gas mains are closed now, but no one will be allowed in the buildings for several hours because of the fear of explosions from possible concentrations inside. Rick Davis, NBC News, San Francisco.
In other news, Israeli Prime Minister Begin and Egypt's President Sadat met again today. The meeting in Egypt is not expected to accomplish very much. Discussions are reportedly centered on how to revive those stalled talks on granting Palestinians in Israeli-occupied land some form of self-rule. More Iranian trouble. Some anti-Khomeini students tried to take over the Iranian embassy in Belgium. They were arrested before they got inside. Some Iranian demonstrators also tried the same trick in the Netherlands with the same results. Some significant news from the Reagan administration today. Affirmative action rules may be phased out. These rules require firms doing construction or other work for the government to hire a certain number of minority workers. Reagan officials see that as unnecessary federal interference. Minorities see it as a way to keep from being locked out of jobs. That means there will be a fight over the rules. A good forecast.
And it's going to be a good one. We'll bathe ourselves in sunshine tomorrow, and it really is not enough to tear you out of the frame either, Ed. Looking at our low temperature this morning, you couldn't bathe yourself with sunshine. That was during the dark hours. We had a 64-degree reading just before the sun came up, 67 in the city. Then 88 this afternoon over in West Columbia and at the University of South Carolina. It was 90 degrees. No changes in the rainfall. Live color radar is looking all over Georgia, North Carolina. Showers that have been occurring along the Carolina coast and the coastal waters just offshore from Georgetown and Myrtle Beach. It's just about over. We have the ground clutter around here. And looking into Georgia, there have been some very heavy thunderstorms in the central part of the state, dropping a lot of heavy rain. That's just about to break down now, and we're not getting all of that right now. So looking at the live, or the satellite from the live color radar, we see the clouds coming out of the Gulf states into the southeast, creeping into Georgia there, being brought on by a frontal system that has been a little bit more active in Georgia and Alabama than has been around us. The showers seem to be on the decrease here, though. It's been mostly sunny over the state today, although that lid from that high pressure that has taken over has held the air circulation at the lower levels to the point where there's that haze. You can see the sunshine is there, but the sky is not blue, they're gray. It'll continue that way because the high is going to take over for the next couple of days. Look for the temperatures to continue about the same, maybe not quite as high. 92 at Beaufort was the highest in the two Carolinas. It was not only 86 at Asheville in the mountains of North Carolina, but on the Grand Strand this afternoon. And it continues to be parched in the northwest. Maybe from somewhere there'll be some rain in the next 5 or 6 days. Doesn't really show for anywhere in South Carolina. Best chance maybe it'll come a little bit later on around the weekend. We'll watch these fronts as they start to move in from the Midwest. In the meantime, showers and thunderstorms are widespread across here and over Florida. Fort Myers with 2 inches had the heaviest amounts we've seen. They'll continue there and from the western Gulf states across the Mississippi Valley over into the western Great Lakes area. Chicago is included in that area. It's going to be nice here in New York again tomorrow, upper 70s and sunshine. And they're broiling those steaks over in the west. That's 115 at Buckeye, the highest in the country. They had 104 at Tucson for a record, 111 at Phoenix, a record, 100 at LA, and then over at nearby Riverside, a record-breaking 107. We can't match those. We have nice ones here. 58 degrees from Rocky Bottom over into Newberry. It'll be about in the mid-60s there, and the mid-60s here over the Midlands, 68 degrees for the coastal regions. Then tomorrow from 82 to 88. Thursday afternoon from 80 to 88 degrees. 10 to 12 hours of sunshine from King Street to the Waccamaw River over at Conway, where they're 2 feet above flood stage. Winds over the lakes tomorrow will be easterly 5 to 10 knots. Along the coast, southeasterly 10 to 15. That ocean water continues to be nice in the 70s. Back with more after this. But it is fair around here. We have a temperature of 69 degrees. It's really beginning to drop now. 87% on the humidity. The barometer is 30.06 and rising. The air is calm. Lake level changes. Murray is down 1/10 of a foot since yesterday, and Clarks Hill has decreased 2/10 of a foot. That forecast for the Midlands, including the Windsor area over in Aiken County. Generally fair tonight. Low temperature in the mid-60s. And remember, we're 69 already. Mostly sunny tomorrow and Thursday. 88 today or tomorrow. And just a little bit it'll be today. And then Thursday afternoon, a high of about 88 degrees, 10 to 12 hours of sunshine. 5-day forecast calls for a chance of some showers or thunder showers Saturday and Sunday, but for the most part, they'll be in the upper state, and they need it. In the meantime, have a good night, this one. And now for more news, here again is Ed.
Thank you, Dave. Briefly in the news, there will be no TV cameras permitted in the courtroom for the trial of Wayne Williams. A judge today ruled live coverage might be harmful to youngsters who happen to be watching TV when evidence is presented against Williams. He's accused of 2 of the string of murders of young Atlanta blacks. And in an attempt to raise money, the post office is considering selling advertising space on the back of stamps. The public has until mid-October to write the Postal Service with comments on that idea. Here's David Stanton now with the sports report for the evening. Dave?
Thank you very much, Ed. In retrospect, Dallas Green says he probably acted a little bit like a fool, but he's still concerned about the indefinite suspension he was given today. The Philadelphia manager was angered by an umpire's call at the end of last night's game with Atlanta. Umpire Steve Fields said Philly shortstop Larry Boa missed the bag on a play which could have ended the game. Needless to say, Green was livid. He knocked Fields' hat off and kicked it, and some reports say he pushed Fields, leading to an indefinite suspension. Green says, quote, if it's for more than a couple of days, we're going to have some long talks. National League President Chubb Feeney is expected to review the tapes of the incident tomorrow before deciding on a specific penalty against Green. Another Major League action tonight in the American League First. Texas dumped Toronto 6-1. Lynn Barker had a 3-hitter and 9 strikeouts as Cleveland downed Oakland. Kansas City and Detroit are tied 3-3 after 6. Minnesota shut out the Yankees 3-0. Chicago over Milwaukee 5-1. Boston and California and Baltimore and Seattle are just getting underway on the West Coast. In the National League, Chicago down San Diego 4-3. The Cubs are now 8-7 in this half of the season. Atlanta dumped Philadelphia 12-2. Bruce Benedict, a first-inning grand slam, and Chris Chambliss 5 runs batted in for the Braves. Los Angeles is beating Pittsburgh after 6 innings there. Houston lost to the Mets tonight as Mookie Wilson got a homer for New York. San Francisco is beating St. Louis 3-2 after 6, and Montreal defeated Cincinnati 9-1 on a Gary Carter grand slam. The fact that Danny Ainge is multi-talented led to a court battle between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Boston Celtics. Ainge plays baseball for the Blue Jays and has a contract with them exclusively through 1983, but he's only batting .188 this season. So when Boston started talking to him about playing pro basketball, he was listening. In any case, Toronto has gotten a federal judge to order Boston to stay away from Ainge until a September 8th hearing on the matter. Before college football gets back into full swing, at Carolina, head coach Jim Carlin has his eyes glued on the battle for quarterback between Gordon Beckham, who seems recovered from back surgery, and Terry Bishop, who Carlin says is throwing better than ever. Both of them are juniors trying for that position. The defense is solidly anchored by 2 big men, senior middle guard Emmanuel Weaver and Andrew Province, a 260-pound junior tackle. Province is being pushed for All-American honors, but he's taking it in stride. He just wants to be part of a good defensive line.
On every team, if you know, to be successful, you have to control the line of scrimmage, and that's the job of the defensive lineman. And I really hope we'll be able to do that this year. Returning from injuries are 2 other starters of last year, defensive back Robert Perlow and linebacker J.D. Fuller. The NCAA has decided to amend its television contract with CBS and ABC. Members voted overwhelmingly for some changes, which include raising from 5 to 6 the number of times a team may appear on television over the next 2 years. 16 of the members voting for the amendments also belong to the College Football Association. To play or not to play, that's the question Ken Stabler will have to answer later this week when the Houston Astros come calling, or the Oilers. The Oilers learned today quarterback Gifford Nielsen will be out for 3 weeks, leaving them with only one experienced quarterback, John Reeves. To coach Ed Biles, he says a positive step will be made later this week to lure the snake back. Nielsen has a slight muscle tear in his right shoulder. And another former NFL quarterback is finding it tough sledding with his new team. Vince Ferragamo moved to Montreal amid great expectations, but the Alouettes, although heavy with American talent, have been something of a disappointment thus far this season.
During the offseason, when the Montreal Alouettes acquired quarterback Vince Ferragamo from the Los Angeles Rams, it was thought Ferragamo could take the Owls to unlimited heights in the Canadian Football League. Owner Nelson Scalbania went out and got James Scott, Billy White Shoes Johnson, and David Overstreet as a supporting cast.
Well, the adjustments have been tough so far. I think the biggest adjustment's been the width of the field, and the defense is naturally spread out, and there's burdens because they have the seams that you have to hit, and I think this has been the biggest adjustment, plus the 2 downs, and you know, in the NFL you have 3 downs, so you can, you know, sustain your drives a little bit better, but you know, we have to make that adjustment, and better things are yet to come.
For more news, here's Ed Carter.
Thank you, David. Finally tonight, good news, maybe because it doesn't have much to do with Earth, but with Saturn. The Voyager probe is minutes away from its closest approach to the planet. The pictures are fabulous, and there are a lot of people watching, even here in Columbia. We have 2 reports, one from Roy Neal, the other from our own Lou Ann Smith at the university.
One of the latest pictures just released, with color overemphasized, shows the makeup of some of the rings of Saturn. Studying this and the same picture in black and white, scientists have now determined that there are thousands of rings, not just a few as previously thought. A new black and white picture of the North Pole of Saturn shows an incredible number of storms and turbulence. That slice from the top is not the shape of Saturn, by the way. This picture's so new they haven't completed processing. A color close-up of the equator shows calm weather, no swirls or storms, no sign of activity. The scientists say slight turbulence here simply doesn't show up. Voyager's also looking at a parade of moons. Titan, like an orange fuzzy tennis ball. Tethys, a cratered ice ball with mountains. The scientists also have made music by recording the impact as Voyager passed through the pressure wave called a bow shock in front of Saturn and playing it back through a music synthesizer. Tonight, Tonight, Voyager 2 will fly within 63,000 miles of Saturn, narrowly missing it as it passes just outside the rings. Dr. Edward Stone feels that this is the climax of 4 years of work.
Today is the day of challenge, where we're going to be challenged by our new views of Saturn. I think it's fair to say that everything we're seeing today, basically everything we're seeing today, will be new.
When Voyager 2 flies by Saturn, it will send back hundreds of new pictures and reams of new information, so much that it will take days to process and at least weeks to understand what they reveal about Saturn, its rings, and its moons. Roy Neal, NBC News at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Residents also get to watch Voyager 2 as it makes its closest pass to Saturn. University of South Carolina's Physical Science Center is providing live coverage of photographs from space. Tonight's session was a packed house, more than 50 people, with several forced to sit on the floor in order to catch a glimpse of Saturn. Most intriguing were the rings. Today's mission was supposed to help solve the mystery of the rings, but instead only deepened it, not only for scientists but for spectators as well.
The rings of Saturn II, the changes since Voyager 1 was last there to Voyager 2, and the changes, and most of all, the interesting part is the problems that we're up against, answering the questions that it produces, and it's very frustrating in that regard.
Dr. John Safko, a professor of physics and astronomy at USC, was also on hand to try to answer any questions the group may have. He says the ring not only tells us a great deal about the origin of Saturn, but of the solar system as well.
Information, but they're one little piece of information that will help us understand the origin of at least the solar system better. They certainly won't answer the question of the origin of the universe.
Tonight's spectators also got a special treat, the sounds of Saturn. The solar wind sweeping up the ionized gases created a metallic sound, much like that of a tuning fork. USC will be providing live coverage of Voyager 2's journey the rest of the week, beginning at 8 o'clock each night. It's free. Luann Smith, TV 10 News.
That's the news. Have a good evening.